Hello, insiders, and welcome back. Now, I know it's been a little bit, but the market is absolutely telling me to come back, and that is why I'm making this video. Every now and then, we have something that's called a bit of a lost decade, and I think we are in front of those lost decades right now. And that's what I want to share in this video and hopefully save you guys that lost decade of investing. Now, there is a saying that I think everyone knows that your biggest strength is your biggest weakness, or also your biggest weakness. And I was thinking, well, with passive investing, your biggest strength might also be your biggest passive weakness, which is passively walking into some of the biggest bubbles we have ever seen. Now, there's a chart here that I want to talk about, and this is from Samuel Benner. Right here's his name, from 1875. And he used this, or he created this chart to predict panics and periods of prosperity. Now, I've seen this chart many years ago, and I can do a deep dive in this. I think I need to do it for myself anyway. But I've seen it come across all the time. And sometimes I feel like this is a bit of like, we live in the matrix and someone, the creator, just threw in a little bit of a cheat sheet, because look how accurate this chart is. We have at the top here where panics occur, like huge panics. And then down here, we have times where there's recessions and you want to actually be buying. You want to have cash on hand and be accumulating to the market. And then we have these on the B level, these mini panics. And you'll just see here how insanely accurate this has been, give or take like 6 to 12 months. But you have the Nifty 50 in the late 80s. Recession here. You have the dot-com crisis here. In the 2000s, you have the '08 financial GFC, Great Financial Collapse right here, 2007. You have COVID right here, 2019, 2020. So a little bit early there. And then right now we're peaking out again here at 2026. And again, is it a little early? Is it a little late? Maybe it's going to happen in 2027. You don't really know, but this is insanely interesting chart, and it leads, or it fits perfectly with these lost decade periods that I want to talk about. So recent lost decade period that we had was with the dot-com bubble, where after the bubble bursted in 2000, we had a decade until we got back to break even in your SPY return. So if you're holding that, $1,000 in the SPY at the tip of the dot-com bubble, it took over 10 years. And I made a little chart with AI here to talk about these 5 points, or these 5 indicators that I'm seeing right now that is making me a little bit nervous that we might be in front of one of those lost decades again, and why investing in the SPY might just be the worst idea. So here, 1929. Boom, what happened? It was during the credit crisis. Everyone was lending to everybody, like 1 to 10 margin. Everyone was leveraged out of their mind, and we had a 10-year real negative return on the S&P 500. The next one was the Nifty 50 of the late 1960s. Again, it took 10 years to get back to flat. And then the 2000 dot-com crisis that we just talked about, also negative. Didn't even get flat. And then the most recent one, the '08 financial crisis, again took 10 years to get back to break even. So right now, what's going to happen? Well, that's to be determined. And let's talk about why I think this might be happening. Here are the 5 reasons. First of all, we're extremely expensive. Now, a PE ratio, price to earnings, is how many times or how many years does it take based on earnings of a company if you buy at the current price to make back your money. And right now we're at one of the most expensive peaks at 44x. So 44 PE, that's insane. We haven't seen, or no, that was the dot-com. Right now, sorry, we're at 39. And I think this is right now over 40. So we're at those former expensive levels. Now, the thing is, what people are saying, comparing these two levels, is the companies back then weren't really earning a lot of money. Right? You'd have pets.com exploding, but they're not actually bringing in revenue. Right now, you actually have companies bringing in revenue. They're just really expensive. So there is a difference there. However, right now, a lot of the growth in the S&P 500 is because of AI, and those companies are not, or the AI segment of those companies is not generating revenue, or a very small percentage of revenue. So this is the first red flag. And the second one is how expensive, again, 1.1, the market is based on the Buffett indicator, which is the market cap of the S&P 500 over the GDP of the US. And right now, this one is the one that is absolutely more expensive than the previous peak. Now let's put some pictures behind this. First, let's talk about the Shiller or the cap ratio. And you'll see this one right here. Formerly it was higher, now it's over 40. And then over here, it was at that 44 peak. So we're getting really, really expensive on the Shiller PE ratio. And then the Buffett indicator right now, again, the US total stock market over GDP. And you'll see right here, that's the 217. I think it's actually even more at this point. It's like 220 or so. And yeah, look at that. Look how crazy. That is 2 standard deviations above normal price of the market. That's why good old Buffett is sitting on a lot of cash. We'll talk about that in a second. So just insane prices. And it makes me want to say, sweet baby Jesus, things are expensive. And it's making me a little bit nervous. So let's talk about the second reason here. And that is a bubble. And the reason I call this one a bubble is because right now, just like the tulip bubble, tulip mania in the 1700s, we are extremely focused on one asset class, and that is the this is the Nifty 50. Right now, it is the Magnificent 7, and we are around 40% focused or concentrated in that top 10 category. Let me show you guys what that looks like. So we have the S&P 500 here, marking the top 500 companies. However, if you go to, it should be maybe more of an even spread, but really what it is about 40%. These top companies right here is 40%, NVIDIA taking 8% already. That's insane. And then most of that is in the tech sector. Something else I want to highlight here is focus on the tech sector right here. 75.6% is the weight on tech, which is an insane amount of weight. Back in the dot-com bubble, we didn't even have that kind of ratio. So right now, a lot of focus on tech in the SPY, and that is why I'm saying we are looking really bubbly. Not to mention we have reports coming out, and you guys probably seen this chart before, where everyone, all the Mag 7 are just investing in each other. It's just a giant circle jerk and passing money around. So I think that's making a lot of people really nervous as well. So let's come back and talk about the next thing. So the concentration, by the way, in the 2000s, 26%. So right now, that 40% concentration at the top 10, these are insane levels. The next thing is the ZERP era. We've been super comfortable with interest rates going down, down, down. But what actually the ZERP era is, it's this time from, here's actually a picture that I think better illustrates it. It's a time from basically when you got your first iPhone all the way over there in 08 or 09, at least when you saw people getting it. Zero interest rates. We came up a little bit. And what people are worried about is that with interest rates coming back up for the first time to new highs, that people might not understand what it's like to have high interest rates, putting the economy in a very stressful position, right? Think about getting a mortgage for your home. These are just unheard of interest rates since over 15, 20 years. And that's what's putting a lot of pressure on the economy. There is a little bit of a sell-off or a trend back down, right? JP reducing interest rates, and they look like it's going to keep going down from here for at least a little bit. But something that makes me a little bit worried is the fact that last time the world started cutting this many interest rates is usually a red flag, right? Why are central banks cutting? Because the economy is weak. And that's what we saw during the 08 crisis. And right now we're actually at 313 after the recent Fed cut. So we are double topping right now with the former or previous GFC recession. So very, very worrying there. And I do think that right now the narrative, so AI is kind of creating this time is different, right? Because AI is going to revolutionize everything. But I think in the short term, and I do think AI is going to revolutionize everything, it's absolutely insane. But in the short term, I think we're going to probably see a lot of pain because it's much, much, much harder to get a job, especially an entry level job. People don't want to be hiring right now. People are tightening their belt. And with AI, everyone's thinking, what can I do with AI and replace more individuals? So the unemployment rate is slowly increasing. But right now, it is holding steady around that critical 4% zone where people or economists don't usually want it to go above, as that typically indicates a recession. But we are creeping up, and usually when you start creeping up, there is a little bit of a recession coming up. So people are worried about that, which making it my fifth or my fourth indicator. AI will probably take jobs in the short term until more people figure out how to use it, and then jobs will normalize again. And then the fifth thing is that just, gold is a giant, giant middle finger at this point. If oh, I love looking at the gold chart. But at this point, having a bit of a blow off top. Now, a lot of people think it might go to 4.7, maybe even see 5,000. I don't really know or care to guess at this point. I think the gold trade is behind us. What I'm actually worried about is that gold runs up before a recession often. So during the recession, the trade is already priced in. Now it might keep going higher, it might chop around a little bit, but the move, more or less, the giant move is in. And that's what has me a little bit worried. And that is why it's my point number 5 of why I'm thinking that we might have another lost decade on our hands. So now that everyone knows, just buy the SPY, I think it's actually time to not buy the SPY after this incredible run up, because we're going to have another one of these lost decades where we see 10 plus years of negative or flat ROI. So what am I going to be doing about it? Well, I made a hedge fund because in the last 12 plus years of being a professional trader, starting back in 2013, here's me at the New York Stock Exchange with Jim Cramer. I have never seen these insane prices, and I just feel like that right now is the time to start picking stocks again, and I'm absolutely excited to not buy the SPY. If you're interested in working with me, go to winklercapital.com. Links in the video description below. Ciao for now.